Hello, I'm Scott, and I'm here with Ali Pellegrini ahead of her pro debut at Invicta against Marissa Ellis. How are you feeling today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. How does it feel knowing that you're making your pro debut?
It's really exciting. I've been working towards this for a very long time. It's still pretty surreal, but I've been working really hard just to make sure, I'm not anxious or nervous about it. I feel like I've done everything I needed to do in this fight camp and continuing to work on everything. So I feel really good.
That's good to hear. And obviously, in your amateur career, you were 2-0 as an amateur. What was it about your amateur career that thought you're now ready to become a pro?
Well, I had I was undefeated in MMA, and it's for one, it's a little tough to get matches at my weight
Yeah,
class. Obviously, there's a lot of good featherweights and bantamweights out there at an amateur level, but it just can be pretty difficult to get matchups. But I also had six Muay Thai fights,
yeah.
and I think that really translated well into MMA and countless grappling tournaments. So I've got a lot of competition experience, and every time I fight or compete, I do a little better. I make improvements between each fight. Um, I'm making good progress, and I just think my team and I decided it was time, and my manager was working on it. So yeah, it was just the right time. We've been working towards this for a while now. So
And when you're doing these Muay Thai and these grappling competitions, did you know that one day it will translate into the MMA scene?
yes, and from the beginning, MMA was the goal. It's just with the way it is. I don't know if it's just always like this, but at least in the Pacific Northwest, it's a lot easier to get Muay Thai fights.
Yeah.
Just like the commission doesn't regulate it as much and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, it was. I took every fight I was ever offered and tried to compete as much as I could. But MMA was always the end goal. I've always wanted to do MMA. So yeah.
And in your last fight, it was against Virginia Rodriguez, and you did get the unanimous decision victory. How did that fight go for you?
So actually, that one was a second round TKO.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
sorry.
no, yeah, you're good. The first one was unanimous decision. My first MMA fight was a unanimous decision. The second one was second round TKO. Um, but what was your question?
How
Sorry.
did you feel that fight went overall?
I felt like I could have done a lot better. I mean I did good things good, but sometimes I think that I underestimate myself and my
Yeah,
skills in that. It's hard to like in training. I've it's so weird. Like I just feel like I do a lot better in training sometimes than I do in fights. But then there have been fights where I've performed really well. I think it's mostly just a mental thing where I'm like I could let my hands go a lot more. I could have finished the fight earlier. I could have been a lot more aggressive. Um, but I also, I did pretty well with the stand up and the takedown leading to finishing the fight. So
yeah.
there were things I could have done better, things I didn't do as well as I wanted, but overall it went well.
And like you were saying, it's kind of like a mental block, which is stopping you from getting these quicker stoppages. How do you train that and how to stop that? Is it more just sparring in the octagon, getting more time in there?
I think that, like you said, yeah, like it's more time in the cage and in the ring because you really can't simulate that the nerves and the mental side of it. That's you only get that in the cage as many times. And I meditate a lot. Like I do a lot of like meditation and stuff like that, and it does help to like mentally put yourself there. But it's just not the same. So like I do everything I can mentally to prepare myself and physically, just the physical training, making sure that you're ready, um, being confident in your skills and everything, which I definitely feel more so that I am in this fight camp than I ever
Yeah.
have been before. So that's good. Plus, just knowing that like it took me a while to realize that like I wasn't that I had this like somewhat of a mental block in the cage. And that's been a big thing I've been working on for this fight camp. So yeah.
And how do you see this fight going? Like, what weaknesses have you seen?
Um, well, for the most part, like as far as my fights, I try to focus mostly on myself and my
Yeah.
skills. So I've been working on just being very well rounded in all areas. And you can't really have an exact game plan in MMA, but I've just been sharpening everything from my striking, wrestling, Muay Thai, grappling, all of that. I think my opponent looks it's a solid matchup for me. I think it's gonna be a great fight, and I'm happy with the matchmakers and how it all played out.
And how did this fight come about? Were you just given the name Marissa, or did you have a few names that you got to talk to your coaches about?
Nope, they just gave me the name and we signed the contract.
Well, that sounds good. And obviously, this is your pro debut. Do you feel like with your amateur career that is now in the past, you've reset and it's now your pro career now?
Sorry, we repeat that.
So with this being your pro debut, you were obviously 2-0 as an amateur. Do you feel like that's now reset now that you're in the pro scene?
Yeah, I'm trying not to uh, really. Yeah, I feel like this is a clean slate. I don't want to get overconfident. I don't want to be underconfident. I just want to go in there and do what I know I can do, and I don't want to think about being undefeated as an amateur or anything like that. This is a clean slate, and I'm ready to start fresh as a pro.
And you have got a four-fight contract with Invicta. This is awfully the first. Is this contract, is it like an open contract and you can fight elsewhere as well? Or are they just strictly with Invicta?
As far as I know, I can fight wherever. Yeah, Invicta is really good about that kind of stuff. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that I can fight wherever.
And how do you feel like the Invicta is on elevating that women's game? I know it's an only women's organisation. I know there's another one over in Canada. How do you feel like these organisations elevate the women's game to the next level?
I just like that Invicta. They're really good about supporting their athletes, and there's been so many women on the Invicta roster that have gone on to have amazing careers in the UFC, and just like a lot of some of the best women in the world started in Invicta. So that's and they just treat their athletes really well. Um, so yeah, it's great to be a part of the organization.
And like you were saying, a lot of women have started out in Invicta and gone into the UFC. Even on this card, the main event, you have Jennifer Maya. How much do you think she's brought more eyes to this?
Yeah, I mean, it's anytime you have a UFC fighter on a card, that's going to bring more people to watch. But yeah, it's cool to be on the card with some of these bigger names. Yeah, it's awesome.
And you're not only the only debut in the card. I know there are things like Barrett is also on the card. Do you feel like that has eased a little bit of pressure knowing that you're not the only one, or is it just strictly you're doing your own game, she's doing her own game? It doesn't really affect you.
It doesn't really affect me, but it is actually really cool to see another debut uh, matchup on the card. It does. I guess it probably does make me feel a little bit better, but overall, I didn't think about it too much. But it's gonna be fun to debut with other women that are just making their pro debuts.
And how was it that what inspired you to get into the cage?
I just like I don't know. I really don't know. I always had the desire to fight um, when I was younger, and then like also wanted to just I wanted to be a boxer, and I didn't know anything about it, and it took me a while to get into it. And as soon as I did get into it, I fell in love with it, and I've basically just been obsessed with it ever since. So
And you're saying that you're wanting to be a boxer. When was it that that changed to becoming from a boxer to an MMA fighter?
it's a good question. I didn't know about MMA, so as soon as I found out about MMA, I was like, yeah, this is real fighting. Like this is what I want to do. Like boxing is cool, but like the whole like I don't know, you just do pretty much anything in MMA, ground and pound, and all that stuff. The more violence, the better. So I like it.
And do you feel like that's one of the more benefits from going from your amateur career to your pro, now that you can use elbows and just a lot more different things are now being able to come into this.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that because like as an amateur, I did try to work on things, even knowing that there's a lot you can't do in amateur, but I tried to work on that. But I also tried to work on the things that mattered. So I feel like now that I'm a pro, I can really focus on those things that I couldn't as much before. So I'm really excited about that. Like I don't feel like I have to hold back at all, and I feel like I've been working on that kind of stuff a lot. So I'm excited.
And you're saying that you're working on that even as an amateur. How hard was it to contain yourself in those situations while you're in the amateur him fights?
It wasn't hard just because like I would try to work on it, but I didn't spend too much time on it. And it's like when you're so used to throwing strikes, just like long strikes, punching and kicking, that it's muscle memory and that's just what you do. So like throwing elbows in a fight is it's actually you really have to train that a lot to be able to do that in the moment. So it's actually more difficult to train yourself to be able to throw elbows and knees and stuff like that than it is to like hold back from doing that.
And with Invicta, they do have two more cards this year, one in September, one in November. Are you looking to try and get on to one of those if all goes well in this fight?
Yes, I would like to get on at least one more. I want to have at least one more fight this year for sure.
And how do you feel like the elevation will play a factor in this fight? When are you planning on going out there?
Yeah, I'm at like sea level basically. So is my opponent, maybe a little bit higher, but I mean, I don't see either of us having an advantage over the other as far as the elevation. So I mean, I don't. I try not to think about it too much. I'm not gonna like psych myself out about it, but I have done absolutely everything that I can to prepare for it. We don't have any elevation anywhere near here, so like ideally, I would have loved to go out in the mountains and train, but that just didn't wasn't in the cards for this. I did get a mask. I've been training with a mask on every cardio session, and that has been brutal and it's been great. It's definitely improved my cardio. So I'm just doubling down on the cardio a lot in every way that I can, and hopefully the elevation doesn't get to me too much. I think it would get to me mentally more if I thought about it too much. So I'm just making sure I'm prepared for whatever.
And I don't know if you know this, but currently out of the 18 female fighters in Idaho, you are the number three ranked. How does that make you feel?
I did not know that. That's cool. I guess my last fight was in Idaho. Yeah. Um, I'm from Washington. I forget
Yeah.
about that stuff. Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. That's awesome.
So does it feel like knowing that your name is getting out there in places like Idaho and that, and you're in those rankings, do you feel like that is a good achievement getting your name out there? You're getting your brand out there. You can go out there and you might even have fans that recognize you.
Yeah, I do think that's cool. Like I love the kind of Pacific Northwest area, like the MMA community that we have. It's all good. It's like everybody here is super cool. The fighters, everyone. Um, and as an amateur, a lot of amateurs aren't very active, and like a lot of I don't know. There's a lot going on in the amateur scene. So getting ranked as an amateur is great. But I don't see it as like the biggest achievement.
Yeah.
It is cool, but it's not just with the amateur rankings and the way the amateur scene is. I think it's pretty easy to move up pretty quickly in the rankings. So especially with me only being 2-0, and I think the rankings cool, but I don't put too much weight behind it.
Yep, no, that's completely fine. And I do wish you the best of luck in your fight. I'll hand it over to you. Do you have anyone you're wanting to shout out? And I'll just give you the final word.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I just want to thank my coaches, Tony and my team, Tony and Kelly. We've had a really really great fight camp. It's been it's been brutal. It's been really good. So I just want to thank my coaches.
Well, that sounds great. Can't wait to see you get that W, and I can see you on the next card in either September or November. If you are in the Colorado area, make sure you grab tickets. It will be a great performance. If not, in the UK, it is on YouTube, or if you are in the US, it's on CBS as well. So make sure you watch it. It's going to be a great night.